came to represent and amplify the voice of the Wananchi, the voice of the voiceless. The topic I was asked to comment on is titled Deploying Musevenomics for National Economic Salvation. So deploying Musevenomics for national economic salvation signifies that there are sins of commission or omission. In terms of outline, I'm proposing that I briefly state the nature of the debate. I raise the central argument. I will not spend time on conceptualization because that has been done, but I will highlight the multidimensionality of Musevenomics. And I want to approach it from the comprehensive security architecture perspective, to be able to understand that Musevenomics is looking at a big dimension of issues. I will end my submission with an outline of what I propose, especially for National Development Plan number 4. I am proposing that we appreciate that in the state of the debate, we are seeing 3 distinctive categories of commentators. Yes, these are the distinctive varieties of debates. The first is a variety coming from regime elites. The second is coming from the critics, particularly those in the opposition. The third is academics. Regime elites are predominantly saying Musevenomics is working. We stabilized the economy. We did inflation targeting, IMF style. We are doing macroeconomic stabilization. Everything is working, including the border economy, which is being classified by very, very highly respected bankers as a mode of inclusivity. I will beg to disagree. Now, the opposition critics sometimes go overboard to argue that Musevenomics is actually working for regime elites and their close allies. That what we are having is good growth, which is nevertheless jobless growth. That we are having 67% of our youth unemployed. And I'm talking about graduate unemployment, not national unemployment. That we are having infrastructure deficits which are not being met. And where we try, the infrastructure we build is not for the 21st century. We are building narrow Wakaliga roads. Narrow. We are building road reserves. And one of the churches at Kubiri, near Makerere, is built in a reserve. Instead of destroying the churches, we go to ask for waters to be blessed. So in other words, critics are saying that yes, there is growth, but this growth needs to be interrogated because it is not delivering the Uganda we want. The academia are coming to say that we need to give credit where credit is due. But that means appreciating what's going right, but then being able to work on the shortcomings. The central claim of the academia is that Musevenomics must be seen as an instrument of what the German political economists call Staatsbildung, which means building a strong, capable state, building strong institutions, transforming the economy into a high-tech industrial manufacturing economy, and promoting the wealth of the nation, defined as the citizenry. The central argument I pose is in simple language called Kiswahili. Uzuri wa kitu kwa nje si usalama wa ndani. This means that looks can be deceptive. That looks might hide underlying contradictions. That whereas there is a lot that appears nice, the skyline is changing, the hills are changing, the cars are increasing, that not everything that glitters is gold. For Chairman Mao, it does not matter whether the cat is black or white. What matters is whether it can catch the mice. Albert Einstein argues, and I quote, "You cannot do the same thing over and over again at the same pace with the same regularity and expect a different outcome." That for Einstein signifies the art of stupidity. The question becomes, are the dominant ideational norms, institutional configurations, and political economy strategies delivering the Uganda we want, the Africa we want? The corollary of that is very simple. In what ways can Musevenomics be deployed for national economic salvation in the age of Donald Trump's toxic economic policies? This is the basic question that President Museveni raised. And the question was simple. What is Africa's problem? You are seeing a huge continent. Within this continent, you can sandwich the biggest economies of the world, including USA, including China, second biggest, including now India, third biggest, including Germany, including Japan. You can sandwich these biggest economies and remain with space for other tiny things like UK, which fits in Madagascar. And you have others, in all of them sandwiched in Africa. In other words, for the mainstream economists, Africa has a potential. The question from the citizenry is, who is potential? We want deliverables. The question for you and me, and for Musevenomics, is what proportion of the $110 trillion is coming to Africa? Africa does not seem to exist on this economic map. What we are seeing is a share for USA, a share for China, a share for India, Germany, and other emerging economies. Africa does not exist. About 50% of the $110 trillion across the world is controlled by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 countries. Now you are people who have studied and defeated the best and brightest in Cambridge, in Southampton, in MIT, in UCLA, University of Sydney. You have defeated them in class. How come you're not governing our economy to deliver wealth? But the problem with statistics is that sometimes they measure what is measurable, not what really measures. They count what is countable, not really what counts. This balloon, as a model of simplified, using infographics to represent GDP per capita, the wealth of the nation per capita, is trying to show the proportionate share of each region of the world. Again, you are seeing USA, Western Europe, you're seeing Korea and Japan, and you're seeing China. Africa is statistically absent. Statistically, you can fit it squeezed in the middle, right in the middle. Statistically, we don't exist in the world economy. What did the rich and powerful economies do to become rich and powerful? This is a political economic question President Museveni is interested in. He might not pose it that clearly, but I teach it in the global political economic class. Countries that succeeded did the following to become rich and powerful. Number one, they adopted state-guided economic nationalism, not economic liberalism. What are we preaching the people here? All the best and brightest economists are saying, we did it, we liberalized the economy. We sold Uganda Commercial Bank, we sold Produce Marketing Board, we opened capital accounts, full capital account liberalization. You are celebrating a mirage. From the perspective of development, you create the wealth first. You grow the wealth, transform the economy, then you open up when you are ready to compete. We did put the horse before the cart. All successful economies embarked on a distinctive state-building project that meant building a powerful army, building state institutions, including the bureaucracy, being able to embark on industrialization, industrial manufacturing, and being able to ensure that the economy and public institutions work for citizens, not just for the elites, not for foreigners. How much are we measuring there? We appear to be constructing an economy for a few elites and foreigners, not the ordinary citizen. So we are getting it wrong. Number three, export of gold and silver was prohibited or even criminalized. It was defined as hemorrhage. What are we doing? Full capital account liberalization. Foreigners are free to bring in as much money as they wish and take out as much as they wish. This contradicts the history of development Musevenomics style. Nationalistic industrial policies were not just put in place. Protectionism was the norm. Babysitting infant industries. The idea is that you cannot call upon a child who is 2, 3 years, 10 years to compete with somebody like me who has perfected the art of eating. You allow the baby to grow. This is why Mwalimu Julius Nyerere's message is beginning to sink slowly but surely. There are rules for boxing, but you don't put a heavyweight in the same ring as a featherweight. That would be unfair. This society. Export of raw materials was regulated. I'm not saying don't export raw coffee. I'm not saying don't export tea in raw form. I am saying regulate it. Why? You need some income. But you regulate it. Why? We need the raw materials for domestic industries, which we must create. So this idea of celebrating the bags of coffee exported, my friends, we are speaking a long language. If that model was working, why do we have 67% of my students, graduate students, unemployed? Why is it that the share of public finance to GDP is hovering at 14% over 40 years of visionary leadership? There must be something that needs rethinking. Import of capital goods promoted. Why? Capital goods encourage us to produce wealth. So we encourage. In the early stages, that's a good thing. So you may have a balance of payments issue, but if you have imported capital goods, that's a good situation. It means we create the wealth and we are able to grow rich. Export of capital goods prohibited, actually rendered criminal. What did we do to leader spinning mills? We adopted economic liberalism, invited foreigners, and the foreigners stole our capital goods, leader spinning mills. They knocked down the machines and took them. Now leader spinning mills is actually a store, a grain store. You need to visit. This is your country. We do research and you need to come on board. Import of finished products, heavily regulated. What are we doing? We have turned Uganda into a supermarket economy. If I were to ask an honest question, how many of us will stay naked if we said, anybody not wearing Ugandan textiles, we address you? By a show of hands, how many of us will stay naked if we remove imported textiles? Even the person raising is in a suit, this Gucci, imported from France. I know him because I know his tastes. So, my friends, I'm asking this question because we are crying, where are the jobs for our children? Where is the revenue for the state? If we don't create the wealth here, we should know the consequences. Now, infrastructure development was treated as a matter of priority. My friends, those of you, especially those of you in the economy, I am uncomfortable hearing a conversation, debates over broad highways. The economics from Southampton, especially monetary economics, says we want to balance the books. It doesn't make economic sense. My friends, returns on infrastructure do not happen in the first 5, 10, 15 years. They happen over the long term. But the object of infrastructure is to unlock the economy. So why are we building narrow roads? Why are we not learning from those that developed ahead of us? The Autobahn in Germany. South Africa has broad highways. And many of you are always on the plane. I see some of you. Why do we not learn? Why is it that we see good things and when we come here we do things which are myopic? Why should we have a debate on standard gauge? We are latecomers. We need to unlock the opportunities. The secret of the wealth of nations is abundantly clear. Number one, effective statecraft involves building powerful states, powerful industrial manufacturing economies, and enriching the citizenry. Now, development of the nation, according to Ralph Prebish and others, is something we must take seriously. And I want to make a quote. The chair is saying I should hurry. Those constructing wisdom in universities are saying, quote, the last publication of the last 5 years. They are hiding this information from us. This is Ralph and Prebish. Ralph Prebish and Singer, 1950s, writing. They are saying, and I quote, the terms of trade for developing countries will be in long-term decline if they remain exporters of primary commodities and importers of high-value-added manufactures. According to President Museveni, Africa is the world's greatest donor. We are the biggest donor to the world. That's why we are poor. By exporting industrial raw materials, Africa donates jobs, donates wealth, donates value chains which are externalized and revenue to foreigners. That view upholds the point of Ndikumana and Boyd, who wrote a book known as Africa's Odious Debt. I'm told it's okay to quote some sources, since you are all graduates. It's okay to sound a little academic, isn't it? Now, the view being advanced on export of raw materials is critical of the French physiocrats. Historically, French physiocrats, also mentioned in Musevenomics, were believing in God-given wealth, peasantry farming. And I have a friend here who insists we need food. Yes, the best way of ensuring food security is through income security, not by growing. You don't want all of us to go and grow crops. You want to ensure income security as a means to food security. In fact, whenever there is a famine, whenever there is a crisis, the greatest victims of famine are farmers, not industrial manufacturers. If farming really pays, why is it farmers that are the greatest victims of famine? Why is it that the most food secure people are those that are income secure? I'm inviting us to rethink this received wisdom as we plan for NDP 4. Julius Nyerere said, and I quote, "Siri ya maendeleo ni watu, ardhi na uongozi bora." Meaning the secret to development lies in people, the power of the people, the citizens, land, and good leadership. I agree with all, except the issue of land. Because the issue of land is pushing us to look at land as the most important means of survival. And so you have a former Minister of Finance professing that he's now a farmer. Surely you're competing with peasants. Allow me to submit that nchi ya washamba, nchi ya washenzi, we have to transform. I will not translate that. Nchi ya washamba, nchi ya washenzi. The Uganda, the Africa we want, must be characterized by the following. Number one is a structural transformation from the Garden of Eden into a high-tech manufacturing economy. Why? In Swahili we say, uhuru bila nguvu ya kiuchumi ni hewa kabisa. That if you claim you have freedoms but no economic power, that is empty talk. That's why we must transform the economy from the Garden of Eden, which we received from the Creator, into a high-tech manufacturing and high-technology economy. Number two, we need a fundamental change from poor quality services to high-tech services of the knowledge economy and of the digital economy. Now, I'm inviting us to appreciate that even what we classified as presidential initiatives, you are misleading the president. Tailoring in the 21st century, hairdressing, does that require presidential support? Why wouldn't you address the skills of the digital economy, the 21st economy? Why? We are saying the economy is transforming. So I'm inviting us to appreciate that we need to rethink. The border economy is a shame upon us. It is a shame. It is a false model of inclusivity. These, I'm not saying shoot them down. I'm not saying remove them forcefully and put them nowhere. Now I'm saying there is a civilized way. You put them in business, technical, vocational institutions and training. Train them into the skills of the 21st century. Redeploy them. For Musevenomics, security was given primacy. Very, very important. And a number of people, when I say security is important, they say, are you the preacher of the Machiavellian rulers in Africa? No, we all need security of the individual and of property. So as you proceed to your policy spaces, can you kindly broaden the Musevenomics dimension of security to address the comprehensive security architecture? But the question we need to pose is whether there is a coherent political economy message, a coherent interpretation of Musevenomics. I want us to appreciate that Musevenomics is talking democracy. And I want us to agree that dissent is normal. That if Kiza Mwalimu Jeke cannot agree with myself on all things I do, Because I said, should I do this or this one? Should I go for the conference or I go to teach my children at Makerere? So I may not agree with myself all the time. How about 2-3 people? How about 45 million Ugandans? So dissent is normal. Because people armed with different theories, different values, different backgrounds may look at the same empirical reality and disagree. Just like these two guys are looking at the same thing. One is saying it is 6, the other is saying it's 9. This is absolutely normal. And Musevenomics says, look, this is normal. Now, traditional models, and this is part of the global political economy architecture, that the traditional models built on multilateralism and open markets are now strained by the rise of nationalistic economic policies. I wrote on economic mercantilism, economic nationalism, for my doctoral thesis. This was several decades before Trump one came to office. But never did I ever expect that America would be a leader in reviving economic mercantilism. So in other words, I am a prophet, because the truth has come to pass. And we are seeing China, which has been very protectionist, babysitting its farms, and it embarks on major reforms in 1978, when a number of you people are already born, 1978. Now China is the second largest economy in the world. But that's not all. China is the workshop of the world, manufacturing electronics, high-tech products, robots, products which are doing work done by artificial intelligence. I'm coming to the conclusion, implications for Uganda. The president says, and I quote, we need to draw a distinction between the real economy and the vulnerable economy. And the president lists here tourism as a vulnerable economy, luxurious economy. Those doing national planning, please don't put tourism under the essential, the primary. It would be a mistake, not sports. No. It is spirituality that I disagree with. Because the president is saying spirituality is also, well, I'm a Christian, but I doubt that spirituality would fall under the priority sectors. Now, to deploy Musevenomics for national economic salvation, I am encouraging National Development Plan 4 architects to embark on the following. First is to strengthen the president's idea of a productive army. And I'm saying army. The modern 21st century army's job is not just to shoot and kill. Can we have a productive army engaged in value-added manufacturing to save money we spend on military hardware and software, but eventually to be embedded with the civilian economy? The problem we seem to be seeing with UPDF is that it seems to be drifting from the CCM model, the Chama Cha Mapinduzi model, which was Jeshi la Wananchi, which was the idea. You know, the Tanzanian soldiers are interesting. Even when they suspect you have committed an offense, they say, naomba nikutie nguvuni. Naomba. They are requesting to arrest you. Now, the Ugandan soldiers are different. Now, we seem to be drifting from the spirit of Uganda People's Defense Forces, which is like the Tanzanian People's Defense Forces, Jeshi la Wananchi. And now we are saying, fanya fujo uone. Nyinyi, fanya fujo uone. Now, that needs to be restrained so that we can have an army, productive army, which works for the nation, for the citizens, for the national economy, for our national